All right, everybody. We are in our August Lunch and Learn for WiscWeb. I'm Jenna Clinneram, the service coordinator for the WiscWeb team, joined here by Matt Goins. You heard him earlier. Um, he does training and support and office hours, user experience help, things like that for our users in WiscWeb. We also are joined here by Ketter Joyner and Kate Price from the Stratcom team. They are designers on that team. They also work on the UW theme, and they'll be doing a little demo today. All right, here's what we have for our agenda. We're going to do our normal service updates and reminders, our UW theme updates and reminders. I'm going to talk a little bit about WordPress core 702 implications and reminders, probably something you haven't heard of, but maybe good to be aware of. Um, and then we're going to do some demos. I'm going to show you the Data Studio view for migration status. Matt's going to show off the new knowledge-based search plugin for UW Theme 2.0. And then our lovely designers, Kate and Ketter, are going to talk about group of links and jump links best practices. And let's see. I'm just realizing I need to make an update on slides really quick. And we're good. Okay. So for WiscWeb service updates and reminders, the knowledge-based search plugin. So you might recall this in UW Theme Classic. We did have a WiscWeb plugin, custom plugin for this. It allowed you to place search results on your for your KB space in your search results page. We have recreated this for UW Theme 2.0, but it is going to look a little bit different. You should be able to activate this on your own now. It should show in your plugin list, and Matt is going to do a little demo later. As a reminder, we have a data studio view for understanding migration status. That is probably the best source of just kind of like who's impacted by migration and what is the status of each site. And I will also be demoing that a little bit later. As a reminder, we did our document listing migration presentation. That's recorded, and we're working on getting that video out. But now, if you request migrations, that content should be migrating over. And as a reminder, WiscWeb's launch form now routes to something called Avanti Neurons or WiscIt that is specific to do it. It's our ticketing tool, and I will also show screenshots of that just so you're aware. So this is what it's going to look like now if you request a launch with us. You're going to see a screen that says WiscIt at the top really big. You're going to see a username and password field that you're just going to bypass because below that is a sign-in link. So where that arrow is pointing in the image, that's what you're going to click to log in with your NetID, and then you're going to be prompted just like you are with other campus tools to sign in with your NetID and password, which is shown on the right-hand side image. And then when you click into the form, you are going to see something that looks like this. There's not a ton of campus branding on this. There is a little bit of a banner at the top that has the crest, but it's not going to look red and it's not going to look as integrated in the site. But your major form fields will be there like they were in the old form. A couple of considerations with this new form. It does publish to a different URL, so it's going to say wisc-amc.avanticloud.com. Don't be alarmed, that's just the Avanti Neurons platform. Emails regarding your submission and launch approval are going to come from WiscIt at Do It. And just as a heads up, we don't have a ton of control over the design here. So the banner at the top, the font sizing, accessibility of the tooling are all things that are sort of baked into Avanti. However, we can provide feedback to the WiscIt team and they can see what can be augmented there. In terms of UW theme updates and reminders, we are prepping the service and the theme for WordPress Core 7.1, which that WordPress will be releasing on August 19th. However, we're not going to likely get it into onto WiscWeb sites until probably mid to late September. But that's just because we need to do testing and prep the theme, with the changes that need to be made. So that's the majority of what we'll be working on over the next several weeks. I did want to also just chat with you about a recent update to WordPress core. Since then, there's actually been two others, but this one has a little bit more information, so I'll just share this. WordPress rolled out version 7.02 a couple weeks ago. It was on July 17th. It came in on a Friday afternoon. And it fixed two major vulnerabilities. And we were able to upgrade all of our environments within an hour of release, which is great. But 90 minutes after release is when WordPress in general started seeing attacks on not non-patched sites. So that's really quick after a release. And that's not necessarily at UW, just in general in the world where folks hadn't patched yet, they were seeing those attacks. That's a huge turnaround on exploitation and faster than we've seen before. And that new reality kind of poses certain risks and challenges for WordPress sites. So sharing just for awareness, but it does kind of set a new precedent here. Since then, WordPress has actually released two other security fixes in 7.03 and 7.04. That is also a bit unprecedented. We don't normally see multiple security fixes for a single release like that. Yep, someone noted, thanks AI agents. Yes. There's some fascinating details related to 7.02 actually that are on the web. So if you're interested in digging in deeper, there's a lot of information about like how they found these vulnerabilities and then how they resolved them. But mostly I just wanted you to know that we were able to get it out very quickly. But we're seeing this kind of new trend here, and it is a little bit concerning for a large multi-site like ours. Sorry, this is the edit that I made that it's not in this version, but sorry, the highlighted text was a reminder to myself to like check on something. But as a continued conversation here, WordPress powers about 40% of all sites on the web, and it's a huge target for nefarious activity and attacks. And this is why our plugin and general service policies are very strict. So I know that this is a pain point for folks where you can't just like enable your own plugin, or you can't do certain things that maybe are abilities in larger WordPress or on the web. And it's because we are really restricting things for security in a lot of cases. And this is also why we have a very tight window for migration. So UW Theme 2.0 sites have new infrastructure that is more secure. And we're also able to get better insight through cybersecurity on that multi-site because of the way that it was built out. And so they are able to more readily assist in this space. By minimizing that window, we're reducing our risk here in terms of security. And just a shameless plug, we do encourage users not to delay the migration for that reason. It is best to migrate as soon as you can to get it over to that new infrastructure. I'm going to pause there just in case there's any questions, because I know that that was maybe a little bit more technical than we normally touch on. But I also know that there's an audience here of like folks who are maybe WiscWeb or theme users that are not in WiscWeb. Curious if there's any questions about that 7.02 release. All right. So next up, I'm going to show you our new data studio for migration status. We did email about this. I'm hoping that you all had a chance to look at it, but in case you didn't, I will show it off today. So I can take over sharing. I think you might have to, yeah, there we go. And you might need to grant me access, Matt.
You're a
I got it.
co-host, so you should be able to.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so you should see a data studio view. Data studio is a Google tool, and what we've built here is an integration with our Google Sheet that kind of has all of our tracking for migration. Like I said, we sent this out in an email. Happy to share the link if you didn't get it, but generally it's your method for kind of seeing where your site is at in terms of migration, or your sites if you have multiple. And there's a little bit of an overview at the top here. So this list is generated based on data that was provided in your new site request. So this is really, folks are self-divulging their school, college, and division in those forms. In some cases, it might be inaccurate. These things change. Sometimes a site might start in one division or school, college, and then move to another, or they might be shared, and it's a little bit weird. So we did our best to kind of outline these, but just note some things might be wrong. And in those cases, you can email us and let us know. We also believe that there's a number of sites that are no longer active that can be archived. So please do let us know if that's the case. We'd love to get them archived. That takes them off of our migration list and just narrows the scope of what we have to focus on, and also ensures we're not reaching out to groups that really don't need to hear the messaging. In terms of instructions here, it's pretty simple. You can come in here and type your website URL. So if I said, not to call out WiscWeb, but top of mind here, if I was just looking and I can see, oh, they've already launched their site. I can then click on this red button to reset filters. And if I was curious, just like, all right, well, business services, how many sites, do they have? Like, what are their sites and have they launched yet? I can narrow the list by that school, college division, and again, reset filters. And then if I did want to maybe export a view, so maybe I'm part of business services and I want to see, or I want to share this list with someone, or maybe like work collaboratively in like a Google Sheet, you can do so by clicking this three dot icon. Sorry, I got to move my window, exporting the chart here, and then clicking export data. You can then download as a CSV or Google Sheet from there. Below the actual table here, then we have a status key. We describe this just because there is a little bit of weirdness here. If your project has not started, it'll show up in gray. If it's in progress, it will show up in yellow. If you've scheduled your launch, but it hasn't launched yet, it will be this sort of purple. And then if you're launched, it will be green. But some groups never launched in UW Theme Classic, and therefore, they don't technically need to launch in Theme 2.0 to be considered done. For those sites, we have another status, again in green, that just says completed, unlaunched. I saw some combo happening in the chat, so I will see. Thank you, Matt, for posting. And it does, yes, great point. Matt notes in the chat, it does require your campus email. So if you're trying to get into it from like your personal Gmail account, you're not going to have access. Any questions about that Data Studio view? All right. I am going to stop sharing then. Thank you.
All righty. I will take over and I will just quickly do a brief um, demo of the new KB search plugin. So if you remember, in Classic Theme, we did have a search plugin where if you searched for something, you could connect your site to your knowledge base group space, and then results would show up on the side in a widget area. In UW Theme 2.0 now, we do have it at the moment where you need to request this plugin right now. That will change probably in the future once we get just a better idea of its if it's working as expected.
It actually
But yeah,
should be self-activatable now, Matt.
oh, is it now? Oh, okay, I thought it
Yeah.
was still not.
Nope.
Regardless, I have it activated. It's just called knowledge based search. You can activate that plugin. Once it is activated, you do have to go into your settings area and go into the knowledge based search section. And you need to add in the group space directory that you want to have your site connected to for this search functionality. So your directory is usually just going to be kb.wisc.edu/ and then ours is WiscWeb. LS would be LNS would just be LS. Let's see. Grad school. Nope, I can't remember. I just looked at this one. Nope. All right. Well, regardless, help desk. That would be that one right there. Regardless, you take that directory name right there, you punch it into here, and you save your settings. And so now what happens is, as you get out to your site and you run a search, I'll just do a search for user. What happens now is you will have your normal WordPress search results or your Google programmable search results will show up here depending upon what you've set up for your site. The new plugin, we don't have a way to actually embed the results into here. So what the new plugin does is it prompts for a search of your knowledge base. So now if I click that, it will run that search against our knowledge base. And that's how you can integrate that. So this is specific to WiscWeb, how this plugin will work. For those of you who are not WiscWeb, if you're self-hosted and if you're looking for ways to integrate knowledge base content into your site, I would recommend reaching out to the knowledge base team. I'm on the knowledge base team too. If you're interested in doing that stuff, reach out to us and we can talk to you about using the APIs, but that would be specifically for non-WiscWeb individuals. If there are any things that you see with this that you would like improvements or for us to take a look at, feel free to create some feature requests for us to kind of see what your needs are and what we can accomplish. Any questions on the KB search plugin? All righty then. I will hand over the reins to Kate and Ketter. Just give me a second, Kate, because I'm going to make you a co-host.
Thank
I don't
you.
know which one of you is sharing your screen, so you both get it.
Yeah, probably both trade.
All right, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me put this here. I'm trying a new spaceship setup today where I've got the chat on this screen, some stuff here, and then my presentation over here. So we're gonna see how it goes. But I will maybe my head will maybe spin around in a 360. We'll see what happens. But yes, thanks for joining. Kate and I will be discussing the group of links block, so the UW group of links block, some best practices about how to use that, some of its various design settings, and when to use them. A lot of folks here are probably learning the new theme by migrating, which is also like a different way to learn the theme. So we're approaching this from the aspect of if you were starting from scratch using the group of links block and putting it on a page, what are the things to think about? And you can also use that for your migrated site too, but just to give you kind of the frame of mind of how we're talking about this today. And there are two link blocks in the theme, which you may have noticed. So there is the UW single link block, and then there is the UW group of links block, which we'll talk a little bit more about today. And they do actually serve different purposes, and we will talk about what those differences are. Although they share some related design options, which you all have probably already noticed and have experienced already on your own sites, they do have different purposes, and some of them can negatively impact accessibility if not used properly. So the UW single link is intended for just a single call to action that drives users to, let's say, like a resource, an idea, or a page, like maybe your own page or a site off of your site, a page off of your site. And then the UW group of links block is intended for creating a list of links that should be grouped together. They're related, they should be in a list. And for example, you think of that as like a list of resources. A common one is like listing the programs that you might have or your services, things like that. These are two live examples out in the wild of kind of the differences that you see between those two. One thing to be cognizant of is to not stack multiple single links on top of each other. If they should really be a list and they are a list of related links, they should be grouped together. Instead, use the group of links block to make sure that those remain accessible. So the group of links, I know that it's like we've got the red here, and the single link block And in the group of links block, it's a gray circle arrow. There are other link style options that we'll talk about. The reason why we didn't carry over that red style to the group of links block is because too much red in close proximity, like within a list like this, can feel a little visually cluttered to the eye and be a little bit more difficult for your users to read and focus on, especially in the list format when you're trying to get them to the focus should be the content, not the visual design of that piece. So they kind of serve those two different functions. One's more a call to action, the other is sort of like a utility functional. These are resources and links that you want the user to be able to read and decipher between them. And the group of links does have kind of that special hover state still. So you still get that red appeal on hover. And it still has that same animation hover effect. So if anyone hasn't used this block before, this is what I'm talking about, where you get that kind of the underline that uh, underlines the text while also changing the icon to red. So we would call that sort of like little small moments of delight, if you will, where it's not overwhelming, but it adds like a little special something as an interaction. All right. So, what are those accessibility implications that I'm talking about, that difference between the single link versus the group of links? The group of links block is actually coded to be a list element in HTML. So that tells browsers and screen readers that these items are a list of related things that are grouped together in that way. So under each example here is voiceover text from my computer's screen reader when I click on those links. And you'll notice how over here, the single link doesn't tell the user that there are multiple items. The group of links example does. So I'm clicked on that and it says this is list 3 items. So that means to the user that there are 3 things here total that are related to each other. So that's why that is beneficial to use the group of links block when a stack of links should indeed be a list of things together. And some common use cases for the group of links. One is for jump links. So Kate will be talking more about that shortly here, but that is jump links are also referred to as page jumps or anchor links. Those terms are used synonymously. WordPress.org refers to them as page jumps. Here, we're often referring to them as jump links or anchor links. And this is a very common use case. So that links to content that's on the same page. If you click that, it drops you down to that section on that same page. And then another common use case is obviously just linking to other pages or other sources that are within your site or external to your site. So a list of resources, very common use case. So if you were to add the group of blocks, the group of links block to your page, and you opened up the settings for that, as a reminder, up in the top toolbar of the block editor next to the Save and Publish button, whenever you have a block selected, its settings live underneath this sidebar here. So you click on this button right here. It's like a square with another little rectangle next to that Save and Publish button. It will open up specific settings to that block. And the settings included here are the different link styles. So it's the circle arrow, the arrow, and no arrow. And I'll talk a little bit more about when to use each of those. And then the column slider, which allows you to choose between 1 to 3 columns for your links. And then you can also switch between, which is a newer feature, switch between default spacing and condensed. Condensed spacing will decrease the spacing between each link if you're looking for something that's a little bit more compact. Thanks to users both in WiscWeb and outside of WiscWeb for sharing that feedback with us. It's one of the reasons we added that. And then there's margin. WordPress calls spacing like margin, padding, and block spacing dimensions. I find that very confusing, but just know that that is what dimensions means here. So the group of links blocks has only margins available, and that's the spacing above and below the block. So if you have a heading above your group of links and you want to increase the spacing between them, you can use that margin control to do that. So those are the primary features and settings that you have available to you for the group of links blocks specifically. And let's talk a little bit about each of the arrow styles. So the first one would be the circle arrow. That's the default one that you see. It's probably the one you're most used to. It's the most prominent style. And so, maybe we would refer to this as more stylized. You use it in content sections where links are really meant to be the main focus and you want them to really stand out. So these are some good examples here. Um, the contact page on the UW Theme 2.0 site, the special students website. This is a lovely UW Theme 2.0 website. Highly recommend checking it out, that they do some really great designs over there using the group of links. The other style option is just what's called arrow. It's just like a plain arrow, no circle style. So use that for links that lead off to another page or website is kind of the best use case of it, or in dense layouts where a lighter icon kind of keeps things a little bit more compact. So you can kind of tell, sometimes we will refer to this as affordance, like this pops a bit more on the page with that circle icon, whereas this one has a little bit more subtlety. So you might want maybe the content to shine a little bit more, or you want something to be a little bit more compact because you have a lot of links and that density helps people scan a little bit easier when you have a lot more. The last one is just no arrow style. So this we recommend primarily for jump links and long lists of links where, and sometimes an icon could feel even more visually cluttered if you have a lot of links there. So, visual clutter is also very much an accessibility thing to be aware of as you're designing. It's not something you can test for in a screen reader or things like that. So that's why it can be kind of more difficult, or sorry, a scanning tool. So it's just something to get a little bit more comfortable, is thinking about, like, does things feel visually cluttered? Is there enough space? If I squint and look at this, does it make sense to me? Things like that are useful to keep in mind. And these are things that you get more comfortable with over time as you pay more attention to them and do more of that work. Previously, we actually were using the arrow style here for jump links. So if you'll notice our pattern, which is this one shown on the screen here, we've removed those since then. Some of that was feedback we got from users, where when they were used for in-page links, they felt like, or jump links, they felt like it was taking them to another page. So we've removed those from that setting. So if you all are doing that as well, feel free to do the same thing. I'd recommend it in case other users get confused, but we're kind of reserving that arrow style for links that are external or taking user to another page when it comes to that jump link context. Here's a couple of this example here. The languages that WiscEdu site is using the no arrow style here, and you can tell that helps, kind of that density kind of helps with no arrow style. That arrow might be more visually cluttered if that was displaying there, if there was an icon. Content width is it's one of the hardest concepts to get familiar with the block editor. But with content width in the group of links block, you want to consider how you use width with the different styles and the number of columns that you have available to you. And I'll share a little bit more about how to visually see when something is a little bit off in this sense. So WordPress has for content width for many blocks, it has none, the default width, which is the smallest one. It's about 800 pixels. And then there's the wide width, which is like 1200, I believe. And then there's full width. The group of links block has the default or none and the wide width options available to you. So just stray away from using the group of links block in one columns that are set to be wide width. You can kind of see the difference here, how this one is much harder to read than this one is. The links feel so far apart that it almost doesn't even look like a link anymore. So you want those things to be close to each other. So avoid doing this really wide width layout if you are using it for one columns. I'll show you where one columns looks best if you're going to do that. But yeah, this option here is this is in two, like this would look better in two columns versus just one long stacked list. So if you have a scenario like this, I would lean on changing the column settings for that instead versus a really long one column list. And then two columns. Avoid two columns if you have long link text, especially if it spans two multiple lines. You can see how in this scenario, we've set the width to be wider when it's in two columns. because I have longer link text here. And that's just a little bit easier for the eye to follow. It looks a little bit more clean, a little less visually cluttered, as we kind of talked about earlier. So some of those subtle things really make a difference to your user experience for your visitors who are on your site. And it's not always something that a user notices because it just works well. So those nice subtle changes can really enhance the experience. And you can see it just feels a little less squished, and it's just nice to have a bit more breathing room. 3 columns, kind of similar. Avoid 3 columns at that default WordPress width, especially if link text spans multiple lines. You can see how this feels a lot more squished, a little more visually cluttered. And then this area over here, it just feels more balanced. The link text to the arrow, all of the text spans one line. Sometimes you can't avoid your text from spanning multiple lines, but you can use that width and the columns to make it easier to read at least. And then you've got options for default spacing. So default is the default spacing. This is a larger amount of spacing between the links. And use this when your link text wraps to 2 lines. A little bit that extra spacing just helps with readability if your text does wrap. And then, the condensed spacing can make it hard to tell where one link ends and when the next one begins. So think about that when you're choosing condensed first default. That's why we recommend using that default spacing if your link text does wrap to multiple lines. Use it if your link list is short, like 4 to 6. That's where, the condensed spacing would make the text read maybe a little bit more cramped. So it's useful if you have a smaller amount. The links are also primary content on the page. If they are primary content on the page, that default spacing, the larger spacing, can make them pop just a little bit more, feel more engaging, a little bit more breathing room. And that can kind of help balance out a page that might be more visually designed if you're on a home page or something like that, for example. So here's some examples of default spacing out in the wild. itwis.edu, the learn page. These are kind of the main actions on the page, and that you can see the text spans just one line. They keep it nice and short. Good breathing room there. And then the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute site, they've got a link list here that's short, and each one just wants to be emphasized. So there's only 3, and they use that default spacing. Good breathing room. And their link text is a little bit longer, but they use that 1-column spacing nice because it's in a 2-column wide layout. And I think this is using the media text block, so they don't break to multiple lines on certain viewport widths, and they look really nice. The condensed spacing then, that's when you've got smaller space between the links. Use this when your text line spans 1 line. Links, and use this when your links are smaller in a 1-column layout, like a sidebar. I'll show you some examples of that. Like I mentioned before, text that spans multiple lines, that larger breathing room is actually better. So use this when your text labels and your link text is also more compact and short. It works well in longer lists, so 8 or more. That's like a rough estimate, but kind of keep that in mind. And if that density with a lot more links helps the eye scan to find exactly what they need in a larger list, that can be useful. Also can be useful if your links are a little bit more secondary to the main page content, so maybe they don't need as much emphasis. So that condensed spacing can help with that a little bit too. Avoid when you can using the circle arrow and condensed styles together when you have lengthy link text. You can just see here, this is where it starts to get a little bit more squished, a little bit more visually cluttered, those terms that we're using, where that it just needs a little bit more. One way to fix this would be to reduce the link text. But that really depends. The circle arrow and the spacing really depends on your link text here, but try to avoid it if you've got long link text. Here's where, if we were to improve it, what that might look like. Making the width wider, shortening some of the link text, and making it that default spacing so it has more room to breathe. So here's just kind of like a before and after. There's that one. There's that one. See how it's just kind of like a little bit easier to read. Those things are helpful. Hopefully it's showing some of these visuals makes it a little bit more, sometimes it's hard to spot until you see it, where this is beneficial to keep in mind. Here's some condensed spacing examples. So here's this layout where it's jump links on a page. So in a kind of sidebar layout, here's another one where it's this 6633 column layout with no arrow or the plain arrow style. These look really nice with condensed spacing. Um, and something that's kind of confusing, I'll just share what I mean by 6633. You might have seen this if you use the columns block yet. But when you put the columns block on a page, you've got options for layouts to choose from to start with. And 6633, those numbers are just referring to the column width as a percentage. So this is the 6633 one. I believe that's what we're using for these jump links here in one of our patterns that we have, or something close to it. So just sharing what does 6633 mean? These are roughly around those column widths. We leverage the 6633 quite a bit, actually. 50/50, obviously, it's a 2-column equal width layout. And once you start playing around with these things, you kind of get the idea of how much space those take up. Margin for the group of links block, as I mentioned before, this is just showing you if I was like changing the margin for the group of links, how it changes the top and bottom. So it's adding more space above and below the block itself. So you can use that at your advantage if you've got content above and below your group of links that you want a little bit more spacing to work with. And I will pass it off to Kate. And I see there's maybe some stuff in chat. Where does the one go? Nobody knows. I know. It's all relative. That's funny, Rich. Kate, do you want me to stop sharing and you share?
Yeah, I can share.
Ooh.
Thanks. All right. Hi, everybody. Oops. All right, I'm going to be talking about how and when to create a jump link menu. So sometimes for text and information heavy pages, less is more when it comes to design. So think minimalism versus maximalism. For really dense content, stacked sections with left-aligned text are easier to scan than multiple columns or centered text. Generally, your H2 headings should represent the outline of your page. They should be clear and concise and all styled the same. So in terms of font size, whether you're using the mini bar or not, here the theme defaults are your friend. Also, subtle alternating background colors can help differentiate sections of content. I'd recommend just the default white and then the lightest gray in the theme color palette. And for these longer, dense pages, on-page links or jump links can help your users navigate quickly to the content that's most relevant to them. And here, the screenshot is from the UW theme site. It's using actually the list block. I'm going to be showing how to create a jump link menu with the group of links block, but for super dense utilitarian pages with a lot of sections, the list block might be the better choice. All right, so how to create jump links. Give the destination block an HTML anchor. So the block that you want to link people to on your page. And that is in that right-hand panel that Heather showed. You scroll down to the bottom and there's this advanced section with an HTML anchor field. And my recommendation is to keep it simple. The anchor doesn't have to be the exact text that your heading is. And then link the source text with a hashtag and the anchor name. And then present a set of them as an on-page menu using the group of links with the no arrow style, like Heather showed. For very long pages, consider using the back to top block at the end of each section, right aligned. And you may have to do a little adjusting depending on the content width of your section. We've done a little research on back to top buttons, and it's easier for users to find on the right side of the screen. And when it makes sense, consider trying the theme starter content pattern with that jump link menu. For a lot of us here, that may not be totally relevant since we're in migration and we're migrating existing content, existing pages, but just think about it when you're creating a new page with a lot of content on it. All right, I'm going to jump to my browser and create some jump links. So I have a Bob Ross recreated Wikipedia page here. There's a lot of content, a lot of scrolling. So I'm going to add a jump link menu right at the top. So I have my intro section here. It's in a group right now. I'm going to convert it into a column block. And here I'm going to add 2 columns, change the width to wide, and then do that 66-33 ratio. All right. And in here, I'm going to add the group of links block. That's a pattern. All right. And I'm going to set this to the no arrow style. And I'm going to give this a background color. Let's do light gray. Give it some padding. And let's put a heading before it. We'll do an H2, but we will reduce the font size. All right. Give the columns a little padding here. Put a border radius on it. Change this to rem and 0.5 rem, which is our default border radius style in the theme. So I have all my content sections here labeled. So I'm just going to pop these in. We'll just do a couple. I won't do all of these. So we recommend putting the anchor link on the group that your content is in versus the heading. If you put it on the heading itself, when you link people down to that section, the heading will be right at the top of the browser window. There won't be any space above it. So I'm going to put the anchor link on this group here. I'm going to go to advanced and early dash life. And the other benefit of that is you see here in the left list view, you see that label right on the group. It's nice and visible just for your own, knowing where you are and that there's an anchor link there. Okay, so I'm going to go to this link and just do hashtag early life. All right, so I need to do a little adjusting of the padding on this one, but you can see this jumps us right down to the section with a little nice bit of space on top there. So yeah, I won't go through all of these, but this is really beneficial for a long page with a lot of different sections. Again, think about the structure of your page. All of these ideally should be H2s, the same heading level for all of the links. Yeah. So here. All right, so we're going to talk about how not to use jump links. Don't link across different heading levels or with an unclear heading structure. So yeah, you should be linking to H2 headings in most cases. And we don't have the ability to nest links in the group of links like we did, I think we did in the classic version where you would have a link that was indented from the previous one and that suggested that it was, a nested link. So yeah, best to keep it all at the same heading level. Yeah, don't add the HTML anchor to the heading block itself. It's because you lose that space at the top, add it to the group. And don't combine on-page links with external links or links to other pages. It just runs counter to user expectations when they're unexpectedly taken off the page. So keep those on-page links separate in their own menu with a clear heading that makes describes their function like on this page. And real quick, I'm just going to share an example from office hours, actually. We helped the folks at SMPH Shared Resources with their homepage and added some jump links for them. So this is a great example of pulling back the design a little bit when you have a lot of information on a page. Their site is relatively small. It's a resource repository, and this is their homepage, and the meat and potatoes of their whole site is on their homepage for people right when they get there. So a lot of really dense information. It's a little hard to scan, find what you might be looking for. So we are working with them to redesign this a little bit, stacking the content, bundling it, some of it in accordions when appropriate. If all of it, all of the text content within these categories doesn't need to be right out there, people can scan more easily. And it might be a little more boring, but it's just easier to digest. And then adding those jump links at the top. Oops. All right. And yeah, Kedar, I don't know if you want to walk through these resources quick at the end.
Yeah, sure. This is just a list of some the UW theme page for a group of links. If you're looking for information around how to use that, let me put these in chat and I wonder if they will work. Oh, it's gonna come through not styled well. So the group of links, I'm just gonna do one at a time. Here's the documentation for that. The next one would be the list block documentation. So as Kate mentioned, if you have like a ton of links, the list block can be your friend for that. Think about content strategy too. If you have too many links, maybe that's a sign that there's a better strategy to use too. And you could come to Design Office Hours to talk with us about that. The next one is the WordPress.org article here, which is how to create page jumps. Just sharing, they refer to jump links as page jumps, and then in the WordPress UI, it's referred to as an anchor link. But those all mean the same thing. And then if you need help and you want to talk about layout and design and branding, you can join the Design Office Hours that we do in partnership with WiscWeb. Those are every Thursday from 2 to 4. the 45-minute sessions. It's helpful if you can share examples with us ahead of time and your goals of what you're trying to do. And then we can kind of do a little bit of researching ahead of time. So that's helpful for us if you can be specific kind of around what it is that you're looking to achieve and what we can help you with when it comes to layout and design. Thank you, Kate. That was a great overview. I learned a lot from you also in this session. Cool. That's what we got.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for adding all those lovely links to the chat. We do have a question from Brendan. Brendan asks, one thing we're always debating about in our on this page navigation is that group of links is placed on the right side next to the intro block of page text. The back to top link jumps you to the very top of the page, in other words, the intro text, instead of going back to the on this page block, which might not be the best mobile experience. Any recommendations for that?
I guess
So
in
the,
that
oh, go ahead.
I'll throw this out there just because I was reading that instead of using, I guess what I would say is instead of using back to top, just create your own jump link at the on this page section and just create your own sort of pattern or whatever it might be for a back to top section. But instead of jumping all the way to the top, it just jumps you back up to the section that you want it to be. And then you just you can just reuse that pattern over and over again on a page.
Yeah, that could work. Something I forgot to mention when I was demoing building the on-page links is that I put just that first short intro section in a column block with the on-page links. So on mobile, what would happen is the on-page links menu would pop below just that intro section. So you don't want to put your entire page in that left-hand column and then the on-page links in the right-hand column, because on mobile, that will pop the jump links all the way to the bottom of your page. Also, you could put the jump links in the left column. Visually, that can look a little awkward depending on your content, but that will keep that menu at the top on when it stacks on mobile. So yeah, I mean, like it's kind of like there's no ideal right now since we can't control mobile stacking. But yeah, just something to think about with your content and where you put that menu.
Yeah, yeah. So right now we put that on the right-hand column. And I think maybe I'm gonna share my screen really quick just to show what let me see, where is it? The contact page. What Kate's referring to here is, so we've got our jump links here on the right-hand column. And if I were to go to mobile here, see how they stack below that intro. If all of this content was in the right-hand column, everything here, and just the jump links, they would stack all the way below that first column. So that's why you want to be really careful with that. Keep that up at that intro area. Keep these just that 2-column isolated together versus the whole page in a whole 2-column layout. This conversation will evolve how we do jump links and like table of contents navigations. There's WordPress itself is evolving around that, so we'll keep folks updated if anything around that changes. The back to top link, I agree. Yeah, Matt, that is a good solution. I think that could work too. I think the other thing to be cognizant of is like users just know what the back to top link is. They know it's going to take them all the way to the top of the page. So they're expecting that. So you could do that as a workaround. It might work, but it might just be more to maintain too. But if you hear from users, maybe if they get confused by that, that might be a good way to think about it too. We are thinking about eventually a floating back to top button in the future too. So stay tuned on that as we think through what that looks like in the future.
Any other Any other questions out there for anybody? Do you have recommendations or conventions for deciding between a single link versus a button? Kate did answer one that we debate about quite a bit. Buttons should be used for an action. So yeah, usually when I'm training folks, how I describe buttons versus links is buttons are meant for like 1 to 3 word call to action, like apply today, reserve your spot, things of that nature. Like a button should be meant for that type of like really grab someone's attention to take an action right now. Whereas your links are more of your standard navigational processes, like jumping to things on a page, jumping to things on another page, linking to another page. That's more of where you're going to use your links for just your general navigational concepts. Buttons are more of like, I need your attention on this thing now. Donate, give, find out more, apply today, things of that nature. That's where your buttons really come into play, is just to really grab attention for a singular important task. But that also being said, overdoing buttons can also take away from a UX standpoint, because then it kind of gets a bit of, I mean, I don't consider myself easily overwhelmed, but I've seen people create button link pages that have become very cognitively overwhelming because there's so many things that are trying to grab my attention on a page when it comes to buttons that it's too much. So you want to use buttons infrequently for that very specific call to action attention.
Yeah, and I'd say a good way to kind of look to and how we use buttons is to look at our the patterns in the theme too. Just kind of doing like a quick view can sort of see where we're using those. I think at most we put 3 next to each other, and otherwise we're using 1 or 2. So we don't do like a group of like a big group of buttons, or like what we used to be called as a button cloud, for that reason that Matt mentioned, is it can just get really overwhelming. So we
Yeah.
try to reserve to the things that we really want people to click on or know about.
Yeah, it really is that the buttons really are that concept of grabbing attention to do something important.
Yeah. Good question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a question that I field pretty often. So, any other questions, thoughts, comments, concerns? We are over time. We are at 101.
Yeah.
So,
You could probably cut the recording there.
okay. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you,
So-
everyone.